For the fourth and final element of the swing, we're going to go back to the very beginning and look at what we started with, which was how the body moves throughout the swing. The reason we've left this to the end is because if you're striking the ball well when you're hitting shots, you may not even need to consider this aspect. However, if you're not striking the ball well, especially if you're catching the ground behind the ball, we need to look at this because it's going to affect where the low point of the swing happens. And if the low point of the swing is behind the ball, this is the first element to look at. To begin with, we said we want to stick on the ground by the right heel, and we simply want to turn our shoulders so that the club we're holding up against them moves on top of that stick. The downswing is of course going to be the reverse. We're going to turn the shoulders back towards the target and then through into a finish. Now there's a rotational aspect, which is what we're looking at, but there's also what you may call a lateral aspect. As we swing back, we want to turn our shoulders to the right away from the target. But before we start our downswing, we need a certain amount of lateral movement back towards the target. If we don't have this lateral movement back towards the target, or even worse, if we have lateral movement that continues away from the target, we're going to be too far behind the ball to strike it well, and more than likely the club will catch the ground behind the ball. On the other hand, if when we get to the top, we start to move laterally towards the target, that's going to shift the low point of the swing forward to either where the ball is or just ahead of it if we're hitting iron shots from the ground. So the way to feel this to begin with is to turn the shoulders so that your golf club is on top of the stick, and then move the golf club away from the stick towards the target, but without changing its angle. We're not turning back towards the target, we're simply shifting, or you may even call it sliding, laterally towards the target. And it only needs to be a few inches. Once you've had this little lateral shift, you will then turn through and finish the swing. It's not just how we make this movement happen, it's when. So we'd like to get this shift towards the target either happening at the very beginning of the downswing or even just before the backswing ends. So we're turning to the right, we're shifting to the left, and then we're turning to the left. If you can do this with the club against your shoulders first and get a feeling for it, you can then put the club into a playing position and see how it feels when actually swinging the club. So from here, we make a big turn away from the target. We start shifting to the left towards the target, and then we swing down and through. Turn to the right, shift to the left, swing down and through. So apart from just the feelings, we'd like to have some form of feedback that will tell us we're doing this quite well. And very simply, we're going to look at where the club head makes contact with the mat. Ideally, we need the club head to brush the mat to the left of centre, which would be just ahead of where the ball will be sitting. If the club head is making contact behind centre, we need to make more of an exaggerated shift to the left. So make a full flowing swing, not too fast to begin with. Focus on the lateral shift that happens before we start the downswing, and then look for where the club head is brushing the mat. So if we're successful and we're getting the club to brush the grass to the left of centre, it's time to hit some shots incorporating this lateral shift so that we're striking the ball as best we can.